How many toxins should be in your body right now? Zero. So why are so many people inflamed, foggy, and feeling bloated? Because your gut barrier is only one cell thick, and when it starts leaking, that means toxins can now slip into your bloodstream and trigger a full body immune response. So my guest today is Dr. Nikol Hopkins, and she's going to break down exactly what leaky gut actually is and how mycotoxins in everyday foods can make it worse, and the practical first steps you can use right now to reduce your exposure and start feeling better. All right, we are here, and I'm excited for this episode personally because it's something that I don't know much about. Yeah, so Dr. Nikol Hopkins, you're here with us.
Everybody's got one, and everybody should be taking care of it.
Yeah, the gut, I know. Well, I'm going to learn why. We're all going to learn why, and I know you have some, some personal stories as well, and you're so intertwined in the MD lifespan and what Dr. Savage has been doing for a long time, and you have a really cool background, and I'm curious of that as well, as you've worked with some big businesses, but yeah, you're a doctor yourself, Mark. I mean, it's like you have this whole interesting mix. So, I guess when it comes to, let's talk about the gut thing. Like, why is this so important as it pertains to toxins and I guess just the world around us right now?
Well, I think the biggest thing with toxins is that, or actually with the gut, is that it is what keeps everything out of your body. Okay. Think of it
Yeah.
this way. And many of the listeners are going to know this. The digestive tract starts in the mouth, goes down the esophagus, small intestine, large stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then out. It should never come into contact with the inside world, should never come into contact with the outside world. Okay. And there are these magnificent cells that are literally one cell thick. And that provides the barrier between the outside world and the inside world. The problem is when there is a breach in the system, when there's a breach in those cells, and they start to separate. My favorite analogy with the GI tract is like tuck pointing and brick. So when your brick and the mortar starts to separate, and then all of a sudden you have the infiltration of water, and it gets into your walls or wherever, and it starts to create problems. It's very similar with the gut.
Yeah.
When things start to slip through those cracks, it gets into the bloodstream, and then it creates an immune response. All of the cells, the white blood cells, the immune defenses start to encircle it, and they create an inflammatory process. And that is a 50,000-foot view.
Okay, that makes sense.
Where toxins play a role, or where toxins really create a problem, and Paul and I had a little bit of a discussion about this, is what comes first? Is it the toxins have just, bombarded the cells until they separate? Or did the cells separate and allow the toxins to get in? I don't know if anybody can answer that. What I do know and what I do see is that when there is a significant amount of intestinal permeability, which is what we call it, or leaky gut, you have rise to all kinds of gastrointestinal disorders. There's something called SIBO. There's something called SIFO. SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Okay, yep.
SIFO, which is kind of where the mycotoxins come in, is small intestinal fungal overgrowth. And it just changes the entire milieu of the microbiome. Now, what's the microbiome? Again, 50,000-foot view. It's basically the neighborhood in your gut. And you want to have more good neighbors than you have bad neighbors. The problem with mycotoxins is they literally can change how many good guys you have versus how many bad guys you have.
Like actually changing them, like
Yes.
modifying completely.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. Because it actually destroys those cells. For example, and this is where I have my little list. You ready?
Hit me.
So, one of the questions was what toxins are most disruptive to the gut? Okay.
Uh-huh.
The big ones I see are fumonisins, the ochratoxins, and the aflatoxins, and B1 especially. Now, why those? Those mostly are found not only in the environment, but they're also found in food.
Coffee, right?
Coffee, grains like oats, corn, barley, wheat,
Mm.
a lot of them that are stored in the silos
Yep.
that are used for grain, for feed, for cattle feed and animal feed. So not only is it what we eat, but it's what we eats.
So it can get passed down from a cow, let's say, and all the way
Exactly.
through our food, through the cooking process to our own guts.
And that was something that was really upsetting to me. Not that they eat, what we eat eats them or they eat
Right.
whatever. Is that a lot of this stuff isn't neutralized by cooking.
That was actually an aha because I learned this about coffee recently. Actually researching for one of our videos, and that was one of the things is like the roasting process does not take out what you just said, the the different toxins that can come through from the mold growth. And because the common misconception is like, oh yeah, I get a local roasted coffee. I'm like, well, that doesn't matter. It's all the beans that it's where they got shipped from and all that.
Exactly, and whether it's shade grown or whether it's organic, was it on the
Yeah.
right side of the mountain or the left side of the mountain?
Right.
And we'll talk more about this probably a little bit later, but it's the 80-20 rule,
Yeah.
which is basically, 80% of the time you need to implement strategies that are going to uh, help you with avoidance. You have to. You have to.
Everybody.
But 20% of the time, it's like you can't, you have to have some wiggle room.
Hmm.
Maybe it's 70-30 for other people. Maybe it's 90-10 for others. It depends individually on who you are and what your symptoms are or your illness is. But getting back to mycotoxins in your microbiome, so mycotoxins promote the growth of pathogenic bacteria. That's more bad guys than good guys. Okay. Mycotoxins interfere with the tight junctions, which we talked about, that line your GI tract, which are very important to keep that your lining pristine. And the thing that's awesome about the lining of the GI tract is it does regenerate every 7 to 10 days.
Really? Okay.
You can eliminate stuff that's noxious to your gut. It can regenerate fairly quickly. Now, with that being said, there might be a spot here that's bad and then it gets healed, and then there might be a spot over here. So it's a constant process. It's never one and done.
Hmm.
Never.
Yeah, and I don't want to get away from your list, but to keep that lining pristine, my brain goes immediate to like, wait, how can I keep it pristine? Like, I'm sure it's keeping inflammation down. I'm assuming is probably the first or the biggest culprit, right?
Yeah, the big one is, well, so it's what's causing inflammation? Is it the toxins? Is it the heavy metals? Is it something that you eat that your body has a sensitivity to?
So figuring out what those are, yeah,
And
first.
that's where personalized medicine is amazing
Hmm.
because we take the time to figure all that out. Whether it's, doing the total toxin test or doing a comprehensive digestive stool test, because then I can determine based on your results what, your zonulin levels are. And again, I'm getting into the weeds here. And maybe
Right.
this is another conversation, but there are markers that we look at that give me a very good indication of what's actually going on. And then
Hmm.
you don't have to necessarily always do a food allergy or a food sensitivity test because there's probably 5 to 10 things that most people have difficulty with. We know what those are,
Hmm.
but some people really want that objective data.
Could you tell me share what those most common ones are, just so
Yeah,
we can at least have that in our mind? Yeah.
dairy,
Uh-huh.
corn, soy, sugar, and wheat.
Basically, everyone's going to have some kind of reaction. At least the percentage is very high that one of those things, those five things, is going to
Exactly.
be a culprit. Interesting.
So we'll do an elimination program where you pull those things out and you basically do various supplements, some medical foods that are geared towards detoxification and also geared towards inflammation. And you get everything to kind of calm down. And then you start to reintroduce some of these more allergenic foods or problematic foods. And then you wait for the patient to give you a response like, oh man, when I ate XYZ, I blew up, I had bloating, I had a headache. Because when you pull stuff out for like 20 days, 21 days, or 28 days, the inflammation drops really quickly. And then in the meantime, as I said, the medical foods, you're taking L-glutamine, you're doing other nutrients, vitamin A. There's a whole list of things that you take in order to support your GI tract and heal it. And then when you start to reintroduce things, you wait to see what the reaction is.
I see.
That's good enough objective data for enough people to say, yeah, I'm staying away from that. Because if you're eating all these things, like if you're eating dairy and you're eating, let's say you have a grilled cheese sandwich
Sure.
and you get a headache or you get constipation or diarrhea, you don't know what it is. Is it the dairy? Is it the cheese? Is it the wheat? Is it the butter?
That's a good point.
And that's how you kind of have to parse it out.
I'm just thinking with all of these ingredients, like just wheat. I'm looking at sugar. I mean, it's everywhere. It's so prevalent in all the foods and stuff that you wouldn't ever even think of. I mean, corn as well. I mean, all this stuff, dairy. I'm sure there's this combo effect thing happening that people, I mean, it's kind of like when you hear, I don't know, maybe it's just like that's just how I always feel. And so it's almost tough for people to.
This was my absolute favorite thing that I have ever had as a doctor, and that was when I first started doing this work. I worked for an amazing DO, and he had some kids in his practice, and I did one of these detoxification programs with him, or an elimination program. He was six. And he comes into my office after he was done, and he said to me, and he was the most earnest child, and he's like, Dr. Nikol, he goes, you don't know how bad you feel until you feel better. I was right on the verge of tears. I mean, he had done so well, and he felt so much better. He was always congested. He had stomach aches. He had to stay home from school a lot. And he was a trooper, and he did it.
That's crazy. Yeah, 6-year-old.
But let's get back to these mold things.
Please.
Okay?
Yeah.
Monosins specifically increase a bacteria known as Bacteroides, which is associated with IBS, IBD. And IBS and IBD are so rampant. And it is one of the most, to me, it's a very complex disease, if you want to call it a disease. Well, it's termed a disease because there's so many arms and legs to it. But again, I have never really looked specifically at what's the role of mycotoxins. What is the role of toxins of any kind contributing to some of these syndromes? And when I was getting ready to do this, I really did, it wasn't a deep dive into the literature, but I was just like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And the thing that I love about this work is that I personally learn something new all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I love to research things.
It's the perfect position for you because you're seeing everybody's data too, right? You're helping people interpret their toxin tests and evaluate what the next best step is for them. Like, there's no better person than you to be that one.
The people that are coming to us now are sick. They are sick. And they are smart about what's going on with them. And I would say probably 80% of them have been referred to MD lifespan by their physicians, whether it's a DO, an MD who's doing personalized medicine, a naturopath, a chiropractor, I don't care, these people have hit the wall. They've done detoxes, they've done binders, they've done EBU, they've done every single kind of protocol that they possibly could do. TPE for a lot of these people, I don't mean to sound dramatic, is a last resort. And that's why it's always the next best thing. Always the next best thing.
That's what I wanted to ask as well. Unless, did you get through the list of everything there?
This is a really important one, okay?
Yeah. I don't want to skip it.
Ochratoxin.
Tell me about that. Yeah.
It can wipe out a keystone bacteria known as L. reuteri. Have you heard of that one yet?
I have, but I don't know what it is.
That's okay. This isn't a quiz.
Okay, thank you.
The only reason I know about L. reuteri is because I read this book, which is called Super Gut. Do you know William Davis, Dr. William Davis?
I've heard the name. I do know the name. Let's see.
So
Super
he's
Gut.
written a couple of books. His big one was Wheat Belly.
Uh-huh.
I read his book because I was really trying to understand more of the ins and outs of SIBO and SIFO. And he has a tremendous amount of knowledge and information. Anyway, long story short, I read it, never had heard of L. reuteri. And he actually has this whole process where you can ferment dairy using the L. reuteri capsule. And you can basically ferment any probiotic.
Uh-huh.
And you ferment it for 36 hours. And going from 20 billion colony forming units to 300 billion
Wow.
in
Okay.
36 hours. I'd never heard of L. reuteri. And so I started doing it myself. And I make that, and I make some other, whatever, yogurt. You can't really call them yogurt because it doesn't have the true yogurt things in
Yeah.
it. But anyway, I've seen a marked difference in terms of my own digestion. Because
Wow.
I live in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
I went through a period where I had E. coli.
Wow.
I knew basically the things to do, but it wasn't going away. It wasn't going away. It wasn't going away. So I finally had to, I did one round of antibiotics, which I try never to do. And then I got better. But then, living down here, you just are kind of at the mercy of, of our vegetables and fruits. And, they use pesticides down here still. And that sort of thing. And even though I try to do mostly organic, sometimes you just can't.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I found out about that particular one because it's called a keystone probiotic. And it's important because when L. reuteri is gone, it's gone.
Like out of the food or whatever it is. Okay.
So it takes a long time to repopulate the gut with it, which is why doing this fermentation of 36 hours and creating this massive amount, it helps to regenerate it over time. So
So you're
that
kind of like overloading the gut really
exactly,
with this good stuff.
exactly. And the reason it's important is because it helps to improve the intestinal barrier. Remember we talked about leaky gut,
Oh, yeah.
and it strengthens the gut.
I'm going to do some extra research and definitely that's something new on my radar.
So when the gut is compromised, circling back to that,
Yes.
and you've got heavy metals, you've got, PFAS, you've got whatever, any or all of the above slipping through the cracks,
Yep.
it's going to get into the bloodstream. When it gets into the bloodstream, it's going to go where it's going to go, whether it's to the brain, whether it's to, other organs. It's that's how things go from point A to point B.
The outside just became inside now and
Exactly.
it's all over. Yeah.
Or actually the inside really got in. The outside came in and got into places where it's really not supposed to go.
There you go.
Because
Yeah.
the role of, they're called microvilli, they're like these little finger-like projections, is when food or whatever drops onto these, it literally, the digestion process, it goes down into these little microvilli, and they further break it down. And that's when it gets into the bloodstream. When it gets into the bloodstream like that, when it's completely broken down, no problem. But if a piece of chicken slips through there, not completely digested, that's when it mounts an immune response.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's viewed as a foreign invader. So all of these toxins, because they're small and they can get through, they create an immune response because it's not supposed to be there.
And that's where, yeah, depending on what DNA and other factors, it basically flips on whatever thing that was maybe hiding inside of you from hereditary or whatever it might be.
Exactly. And if you're not a good detoxifier, then everything backs up.
Is that all like, is that just hereditary, the detox pathways, or is that?
No,
Okay.
the detox pathways are actually called the cytochrome P450s. And it's a whole process. It goes to the liver. There's all different organs of detoxification. But where the problem comes into play is when if you're a rapid metabolizer or a slow metabolizer. For example, people might be a very rapid detoxifier of caffeine. So they can drink a lot of caffeine and it goes right through them. And then there's other people that are slow detoxifiers and they have a little bit of caffeine and they get a headache. It's the same with alcohol. I mean, there's a number of things. Drugs, same thing.
Yeah.
So it depends on what your detoxification pathways are.
How do you recommend people start? Yeah, you mentioned, the dairy, corn, soy, sugar, wheat, and like a 21-day kind of elimination diet. But like, where would you steer people towards?
If they start with those 5 things, and that's asking a lot.
I know. That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, that's like the keystone, pieces of
You
a lot
don't
of
do
food.
it the week between Christmas and New Year's, or you don't do it in December. Let me put it that way. Not if you want
Yeah.
to eat chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people know that sugar is toxic and that it's not good for you. And,
Yeah.
and that's one of the hardest things sugar and alcohol are two of the hardest things to kind of dial back on, especially during the
Right.
holidays.
And I feel like something sustainable because, like you said, you mentioned 21 days, so it's not a long time, but at the same time, it's a long time if someone's cutting out sugar, for instance, or wheat. And I guess it's so tough when you don't have the numbers in front of you, right? Like a toxin test. And yeah, maybe you can speak on that because I know you're doing a lot on, you're interpreting a lot of data these days, but like the importance of knowing your own data and then actually talking with someone like yourself that actually can interpret what that is.
It's fascinating. I love looking at those tests. And part of it is, when I talk to somebody, and I'm going to be doing more of that next year because of
Cool.
what we're
Okay.
doing,
Yeah.
just with really promoting it, because I think it's an excellent tool. But again, a lot of the people that come to us have already done one. Now they might not be recent, but it's still very directional.
That's true.
So what I do when I get one, I go through it before I even, I always like to go over them and I make notes to myself so that when I talk to somebody, they're going to ask questions. Like, what is this? What is this? How did I get this? I don't look at all of them, but what I do is I look for patterns. And the big ones are this. You always look at the reds. So it's organized in red, which is greater than 95% you're greater than 95% of the population. Then the other one is yellow, which is 75 to 95% of the population you have. And then the last one is green. Misconception is that green is good. No, green is not good. There's no toxin that's good. And to paraphrase Dr. Savage, no toxin and no toxins in your body.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. He quizzed me many times on how many toxins do you naturally should you have in your body? 0. Nothing. Yeah.
We were laughing about that this morning, actually, in our staff meeting. Somebody brought that one up. And it's true. But I'm actually always thrilled when I see someone's test that only has like, I don't know, seven toxins total. and like maybe one. I had two reds.
That's it, huh? Oh,
I had
yeah.
two reds, and I had like, I don't know, 11 yellows. But the patterns I'm talking about is, okay, I had two reds. One was lead, and the other one was the atrazine, which we talked about the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So I play golf 2 to 3 times a week, or I did until things got really busy here. And I'm like, okay, I know atrazine is an herbicide. There's no lawns in Mexico. And then I'm thinking, it's a golf course.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So that
It
was
narrowed
one.
it down pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. And then the other one was lead. And even though there's no leaded gas anymore, there's diesel fuel used here, and lead is a component of diesel exhaust. So I had a high lead, and who knows if it's that in particular, but and
Right.
then the other pattern that I look for right away is, okay, how many of your yellows are about to turn red?
Mm.
Like, how close are they to the line?
It's creeping up.
And the
Yeah.
same with the green. And I always tell people, again, green doesn't mean good. It just means a mild exposure. And we need to see where you are and how many might go yellow and how many of your yellow might go red.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of go from there. And, most people, as I said, are aware of a lot of their symptoms. So I don't really have a lot of time to correlate those symptoms or those, the findings to what their symptoms are, other than that we have a really good general idea of what causes, what some of these causes are and what people are ailing. The big one, again, is mycotoxins because they're everywhere.
Yeah. No, I started spotting my own, 'cause I had a grand total of, was it 22 toxins, and I think it was it's either 5 or 7 in the red. It was up there. And yeah, on the mold side of things, at least for me, well, it was interesting. My wife and I both did a toxin test, and we compared, and the one that was in common between the two of us, because we had molds that I was surprised by, but it happened to be coffee. That's why I did more of a deep dive on
Oh,
coffee.
the toxin?
Yeah, yep,
Was it
exactly.
toxin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the one that we shared, and I was like, ooh, interesting. So now I've been all about getting the cleanest coffee and and that's a whole nother adventure in itself. That's why I
Oh,
hold with you on it.
absolutely. And not only
Yeah.
that, it's like, okay, well, how much, how many BPAs did I have? Do I have? I didn't have any. I was shocked. Well, I had some,
Wow.
but nothing that was big, because my husband and I got to this big fight because one of the things that I also tell my patient, or the people that I do, is like, don't freak out. Okay, just
Yeah.
don't freak out. This is a roadmap.
Yeah.
Okay, and now that we know what you've got, we got to figure out what your avoidance techniques are going to be, because before you can get in for TPE, because not everybody can do it, they
Hmm.
can't.
Right.
So we got to develop your avoidance plan. Okay, clean air, clean water, clean food. Get rid of every single piece of plastic that you possibly can. And for me, what that was coffee pot.
Oh, that was plastic.
Oh
Ooh.
yeah, I had a him whatever, a
Yeah.
Cuisinart with the plastic thing, the whatever,
Yep.
and I said to my husband, we can't use this anymore. Well, yeah, he was none too pleased with that. So I looked around, and we had talked about a percolator coffee pot.
Hmm.
It's all stainless steel. Then we tried one, and we it didn't turn out that great. And I can figure out most things, and it was just like, I bought a French press.
Uh-huh.
I was very reluctant to do it because I thought this is going to be a pain in the butt. But you know what? It takes as long to make a pot of French press as it does for my Cuisinart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did a side by side one morning, and
Yeah.
it's the coffee is fabulous. So
I love it.
now I concentrate on my organic coffee,
Yep.
and somebody needs to figure out a little wand, that like a UV wand or something, that you can wave over your coffee to destroy all those toxins. But I don't know if
Ooh,
that's
that's
a
a great
thing. I think that's
idea.
a thing.
Someone's gonna come up with it.
Yeah, they will, because I put it out in the universe.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
What other, before we wrap up here, because I do want to tease and say you're going to be back for more episodes, if you like it or not, Nicole, bringing you back. Because I know we're going to deep dive, at least I'm assuming, because from our previous chats, we're going to deep dive into all these little things that you just kind of mentioned. So, like, in your house, what are the things that you could do for avoidance? Avoiding these toxins as best as you can, your
Yeah.
food, your air, water, and all that. I think that's very fascinating. It's very practical. It's something that we can all do. And I think it's like one of those things, once you know it, then you're just like, oh, dang it.
Yeah. So there's a team of folks working on a book for the practice and also for the TPE people. That kind of goes through, what are the next steps? I researched the appropriate, air filters and water filters and blah blah blah, and I scrubbed them against Consumer Reports versus this particular website here. Because to be honest, you have to be really mindful and careful of who you're reading, who you're looking at, and what the research actually means. For example, Consumer Reports is fabulous for electronics and those kinds of things, but they don't go as deep as we would in terms of like some of these different chemicals that are in things, if that makes sense. I went and looked at other websites like Made Safe or Environmental Working Group and kind of scrubbed all those things against that. So the 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 information that's there is going to be, really usable stuff. But
Yeah.
what I did when I got mine back, and this is what I tell everybody, is, you know, pick a room. And for me, it was the kitchen because I'm in the kitchen a lot. So I literally took every piece of plastic, Tupperware,
Yeah.
and got rid of it. I had some really, I had some really nice big Tupperware bowls that I'd had for 25, 30, 40 years. One of them was my mom's. That actually is still in a cabinet because it was my mom's. I don't want to throw it away.
Sure.
I got rid of all of my Teflon pans, frying pans.
Oh my God. That's the first thing that had to go for mine. Yeah, it's Teflon's non-stick.
Yep, exactly. And it was like, oh God, I
Hmm.
knew I knew it was going to be a challenge because there is an art to using a stainless steel fry pan. But once you figure out how to do it, and that's what we're going to do in a video, is
Cool.
how you do it. Because it's pretty simple once you know what you're doing. And I
Yeah.
will tell you, you can learn anything on YouTube.
Of course. So the big thing is we wanted to make sure that this whole intestinal permeability concept, leaky gut, is
Yep.
understood because it sounds like that's I didn't understand it, but the fact that we're basically hanging on with this whole one cell seal essentially around our
Hmm.
gut, and if that thing is compromised, then all sorts of bad stuff can happen, and it could trigger all these different things, even if you're feeling pretty good right now, right? Like you
Right.
have all these factors. So,
Well, and it's the same for the brain too. It's like,
mm,
you can have leaky brain too. And that,
mm,
that's kind of, bringing this whole thing back is there's something called the gut brain axis.
hmm.
So what affects your gut's going to affect your brain or
Wow.
can
Yeah,
affect
it's
your
a direct line to it, right? It's
brain. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe we go through that connection on a future episode too. I think we're creating a little breadcrumbs here. So,
Oh, definitely.
where would you say their next step is? Like, where would you say, "Hey, go do this, a practical thing," and then you're going the right direction.
Well, definitely, implement your avoidance techniques. If you don't have a water filter, get one. Start somewhere, whether it's a pitcher, plastic pitcher. Just make sure that you are vigilant with changing your filters out. I had a patient who got really really sick because she never changed her filter. It was full of mold.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you water, open your windows if you can, get a good air filter, and there's recommendations in the book that's going to be available. Start to eliminate ultra processed foods. Do 80/20. Again, just, pick a room get on it. A little bit at a time. Don't overburden yourself. Don't drive your family crazy. My husband and I just bickered about stupid crap for weeks. Every time he went to find something, where's my glass? I threw it away. I threw it away. I got rid of it.
I had the same thing with my wife too. We did it years ago too, and but once you understand, I mean, but yeah, like don't just start upheaving your house, yeah, doing that without maybe communicating why. You
Now,
know?
it's overwhelming, and it's overwhelming to the pocketbook too.
True.
To the extent that you can put everything in glass, do it.
Mm.
So what we'll talk about next time too is because I worked for Kraft Foods,
I know.
I
It's
used
interesting.
to go to the craft plants for things like when I worked in promotional marketing and we like were seating contests or whatever. And I would, you watch how stuff is made. And when stuff is filled, like whatever, if it's ketchup or mustard or mayonnaise or whatever, hot food goes into plastic.
Immediately. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you can buy something in glass over plastic, do it.
That's a reframe for me actually, because like, yeah, you don't think much about the mustard bottle that I
Yep.
know is in my fridge right now that says Kraft on there. It's like, how did that get filled? Steaming hot and right
Exactly.
into a bunch of, yeah.
Molten hot, whatever. So,
Mm,
the grocery store that I shop here in town in Mexico, in San Miguel,
mhm.
I actually consciously looked for mustard, mayonnaise, and ketchup in glass bottles, and I found them. And two of them were Heinz, which Heinz it's Heinz Kraft.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that I am particularly brand loyal, although I am. And there was a Heinz mayonnaise. So I thought, if I'm not going to make my own mayonnaise, people are like, "How do you have all this time?" Well, I was semi-retired until I came back to work with Dr.
Yeah.
Savage. But it's a game for me at this point. It really is.
Well, again, it's almost like, and I think Dr. Savage sees it this way, or he's talked about it, is like you almost had to, because he came out of retirement as well, and
Oh
he
yeah.
saw, I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
holy moly, there's like all this stuff now I could do something about. The data that, the tests is like the, TPE as a treatment, and then all the different protocols, because we know more now and have the ability to actually help people. So I'm just assuming over here that that's probably why you came out and you're like, okay, we got something bigger to do.
Well, it's interesting, and I'm not sure that Dr. Savage even is aware of this, but he has called me, he has conscripted me. This is the third time. The first time I was living in Seattle, I had already worked for Dr. Savage, and I left to move to Seattle to be with my husband. We had just gotten married, and
Hmm.
it's always the week between Christmas and New Year's when he calls me. And this
Yeah.
last time it was a week between Christmas and New Year's. And my phone, I still have his number on my phone, obviously. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, did I do something?
Yeah, what
Why
did I
is he
do
not
wrong?
calling me? I'm doing this new thing. And he's like, he just expects us all to know what he knows, which is another thing. And it's hilarious because like, I'm doing this. It's called aphoresis. And I'm writing it down. I'm like,
Never heard of that
and he's
word. Yeah.
just telling me, he's so excited. He goes, I need you to come back. I'm like, okay. You don't say no. You're just like, okay,
That's
tell me what.
exciting, and it's actually, I mean, he's on it, obviously.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
a,
And even like at the staff meeting this morning, I mean, the the stuff that is happening and how quickly it's happening. But there's two things. Number one, yes, we're growing quickly, but we're growing intentionally. And people are getting better.
mhm.
And one of the big things that I realize, and they said it this morning too, was like, we are, we know toxins at MD Lifespan. We know toxins. We know how to get rid of them. And we are the best at doing it. We are.
Period.
We are.
Yes.
We are. And we are the industry leader. And I think that's only going to be proven. The more like next year is going to be I think, a really amazing year for people, for patients, for people who are looking, because people are looking for us.
Hmm. That's
They're
true.
looking for therapeutic plasma exchange, and this is where they're coming to us because of all the stuff that we're doing. Our protocols, they're so incredibly well designed and thought out. And our
They are.
nurses, have you done it yet? Have you done TPE
I've
yet?
done 3 sessions. I'm done with, yeah, I've done it all. I'm like, I exactly what you're saying. Yes, I
Did you
feel
go to
great.
Denver or did you go to Magnolia?
Denver.
Okay.
So Dr. Jill's place.
Yeah.
And Angela, got to give Angela a shout out. She was my nurse. She's been on the podcast here,
Yeah.
reluctantly, but she was on here.
Yeah. I mean, our nurses are phenomenal. And I
And
think of,
and and I will back you up and say, like, because I'm in a bunch of different spaces. This isn't the only thing I do. Like, I'm in the tech space. I do a lot of with AI and stuff there. And I'll tell people and just in my friend circles, my my parents' golf circles, where I was telling, and I show them my pictures of me holding the plasma bags. And what I did immediately, where I was like, whoa, hold on, tell me more. What do you do? I've heard kind of about this, or I'm just very curious about the topic. So I think this whole thing of toxins and plastics and all of that is becoming more mainstream for the right reason. Is that we
yeah.
we need to be aware of what we're putting in our bodies, even if we're not choosing to. But then now there's actually a mechanism to get it out. Like,
Exactly, exactly. When before it was like, and this is, I'm not throwing any shade on these processes, but doing a detox and then, doing binders and doing ETA and doing chelators and doing EBU and doing all these things, they all work to a point.
there's someone that listened to this podcast. Angela was telling me about a patient that said he's tried everything, Ebu included, and all that stuff, and realized it just wasn't helping, and actually chose to do TPE because of the crazy deep dive research, but also of what he listened to on this show, and ended up getting TPE. And I think it's gone really well from what I heard.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you too, Dr. Mansour, that
Yeah.
particular one was phenomenal. I learned so much from that. And then the other thing that I wanted to shout out to was your buddy from Aqua the water.
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
mean, she nailed it when she said, you got to be your own EPA.
That's right. She did say
Well, you
that.
know what? I'm going to add to that. You need to be your own USDA. You have to be your own FDA. You have to be your own CDC. Well, I don't want to be CDC because that's just a little too much.
That's a
But,
lot. Yeah.
and unfortunately, and I don't want to get too political, but,
Hmm.
with all of these standards being rolled back and the government allowing more toxins because they're putting corporations over citizens is what's happening.
Hmm.
I get notifications from environmental working group, from this group, from that group, because part of it is I really needed to learn about toxins because I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah.
know about toxins the way that I do now, and I'm not a toxicologist at all. And thank God we've got toxicologists on our board and
Yeah.
whatnot. But you have to be aware of a lot of this stuff because the government the government's not looking out for you anymore. You have to look out for you, your family, and your other loved ones. And that's just kind of where it's at.
Let's wrap on that note because you're
I think
absolutely right. And do your own research, everyone. I think hopefully this was a great start. If you're new to the conversation, if you're not, then thanks for hanging out. and and yeah,
great.
there's so many great guidebooks, and we have the AI, digital twin of Dr. Savage. All these, there's so many resources where you can go deep dive and learn a lot more. So,
Yeah, I think
well,
so too. And I think people are getting a little bit more comfortable with that, but they still want to
yeah,
talk to the live person. And that one thing I do want to say about Doc is I don't get the benefit of really spending a lot of time with people when they, like I do their 30-minute
hmm,
total toxin tests, and I was doing some information calls, but man, I got to tell you, when he does his evaluation for patients that want to get the next step and like really talk about TPE, he really spends the time to review all of the lab work, whether it's stuff that we did or from another doctor, so that when he talks to you, you know that he's got your best interest at heart.
yep. I've seen some of the recordings, and yeah, it blew me away of how deep he goes into these conferences. Wow. Okay. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, we'll give all the links and ways to, yeah, if you want to jump in, because definitely, it's all about personalized medicine, knowing your data, but also what to do with it in the next steps.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Dr. Nicole, I appreciate you very much, and we went down all these different angles, but you
Oh,
know
we
what? There's more
did.
to come. There's
I
more to
can't
come.
wait to see the edited copy. So anyway,